Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So the line between the iPads is getting fuzzier ever, with the iPad Air cutting way too close to the iPad Pro, making you wonder, should you pay that extra $200 and get the iPad Pro instead of the iPad Air? Now, after owning and extensively using both these iPads, here is my perspective on the iPad Pro, and I hope it helps. If it does, do comment down below and let me know. Now, right away, the one thing which you'd really appreciate about the iPad Pro out of the box is that extra base storage. So you get 128 gigabytes instead of 64 gigs on the iPad Air. Now, guys, we live in a day where we stream everything and use cloud for our storage needs, with several companies like Google, Microsoft, and even Apple themselves offering limited amount of free cloud storage. So when it comes to files, as long as they are not raw images of 4K videos and movies, you should be fine with the 64 gigs. But as soon as you want to try pro apps or resource intensive games, then you'll be glad that you opted for the iPad Pro instead of the iPad Air. On the iPad Air, I always had to be watchful about the apps and games which I'm installing, but on the Pro, the 128 gigabytes certainly eases this up a bit, and you can happily install PUBG and build your profile without being concerned about running out of space. And coming to raw images and 4K video editing, guys, I edit all my videos, including the one which you're watching, on this iPad Pro. One 4K project takes me about 10 gigs on LumaFusion with 20 gigs worth of video files. Yes guys, every video you see runs me that amount of storage to edit and publish it. So 128 gigabytes is much better for me. And even with 128 gigs, I still can't keep all the files, and I remove them as soon as a project is done or I offload them onto an external drive. So really, even a terabyte of storage would be insufficient if your workflow involves using pro apps along with 4K video editing. But personally, 128 gigs feels much more comfortable, whereas 64 gigs, I have to start deleting apps and files to make room for my 4K projects. Next, the word ProMotion pretty much goes synonymous with the iPad Pro. ProMotion is the 120Hz refresh rate which the iPad Pro's display supports. Now honestly, hand on my heart, do I find this really useful? Well, not quite. See, I'm not an artist to benefit with the instant response rate. However, my graphic designer friends swear by this. But graphic design is not my line of work. And then I don't play online competitive games or resource intensive games on this iPad to benefit from that instant response rate. I prefer gaming on a dedicated gaming console, and I have got my PS5 for that. So really, the two major aspects which can benefit from the ProMotion display, I am not that demographic. And yes, scrolling appears smoother, but iPad has a bigger screen anyway, so you don't tend to scroll that much as compared to your iPhone. Also, the already optimized smooth iPad OS makes it even a bit less relevant. So yes, it's a brilliant feature to have on a tablet belonging in 2023, but personally, for my workflow, it's not an absolute must-have. But like I said, if you're a graphic designer or a gamer, then you'll certainly see the benefits. On that same note, let's talk about Apple Pencil hover feature. So whenever you point your Apple Pencil Gen 2, it highlights that app or element, showing that it is selected before you can actually tap on it. Again, I had my graphic designer friend have a go at it, and she found it really helpful, especially on Photoshop, where precision selection is enhanced by this option. Coming back to me, I thought I'd love this feature, especially on pro apps like LumaFusion, where the menus and icons are pretty small. So I thought I could actually see which one I'm pointing to before tapping it. Now, it does help, but it soon gets annoying as it highlights everything even if you just hover on top of them, and this I personally find very distracting. I wish Apple gave us a delay setting so you can increase the response time, whereby just gliding over a menu doesn't trigger it, but if you focus on a menu for more than a second, it does trigger it. So in conclusion, I turned this feature off, which you can do from the settings, as I felt it was more distracting than helpful for my workflow. So graphic designers, again, this feature feels very much geared up towards you guys. Next, let's talk about the inbuilt speakers. You get quad speaker setup, and audio certainly sounds better if you want to rely just on the internal speakers of the iPad and watch a quick video or maybe a few episodes of your favorite show in the background whilst you work. However, for full stereophonic sound when it comes to movies, I still suggest use a decent pair of headphones or AirPods Pro, as it takes this experience to the next level rather than just relying on the internal speakers. Saying that, the iPad's dual stereophonic speakers also do sound good, but there is no denying that the quad speaker setup is much better if you rely mostly on the internal speakers of the iPad. Coming to the camera setup, on the iPad Pro you get dual camera setup with True Tone flash and even a LiDAR sensor, as opposed to the single camera on the iPad Air. Now yes, you can take better shots on the iPad Pro than the iPad Air, and you can even record in ProRes as well if you're a filmmaker using the iPad to film. But again, on my 128GB storage, ProRes is only capped at 1080p, as at 4K, just one lengthy 4K video clip will gobble up the entire storage. So Apple giving us all of this on the iPad is good, and wish I could say that it is as good as the non-Pro iPhone. Unfortunately, I can't, as the non-Pro iPhone 14 takes better shots than this iPad Pro's camera setup. However, I do use the iPad to get shots here and there for my channel, as it still supports 4K video recording, which is pretty decent, and so does the iPad Air as well. Talking about LiDAR scanner, again, a very niche sort of an entity here. If you use augmented reality apps, or if you're into 3D modeling, then you can certainly benefit with this. In my personal experience, I can say that the IKEA virtual reality app had better sense of surfaces when compared to the iPad Air. The selfie camera on both the iPads is 12 million pixels with f2.4 aperture, but the iPad Pro also gets true depth camera, which supports Face ID authentication system. So you get to do this to unlock your iPad with your face. Is it better than the Touch ID unlock method on the iPad Air? Well, I really can't pick one over the other. Both are equally good and convenient. Microphones next. On the iPad Pro, you get studio quality 5 microphone setup as opposed to just dual microphone setup on the Air. Difference? Well, you be the judge of this. Here's the microphone sound quality. First on the iPad Air. This is the dual microphone setup audio test on the iPad Air. And then on the iPad Pro, this is the studio quality 5 microphone audio test on the iPad Pro. Let's talk about ports next. You get Thunderbolt on the Pro as opposed to the USB-C on the iPad Air. With Thunderbolt, you do get twice the transfer speeds when compared to just the standard USB port on the Air. For me, I copy about 20 to 30 gigs of data onto this iPad, and I can certainly appreciate the faster transfer speeds. However, USB-C isn't that far behind. It's only when you're shifting even larger volumes of data is where you would see a much more substantial difference. Let's talk about processors next. The iPad Pro gets the excellent M2 processor paired with 8 gigs of RAM, and for higher storage configurations, the RAM gets bumped up to 16 gigs. Now, iPad Air also gets the excellent M1 processor paired with 8 gigs of RAM. Now on paper, you should see about 20 to 30% overall performance improvement with the M2 chip. But in real world usage, this is not that substantial difference to notice. The iPad Air supports all the features and apps like the iPad Pro, including Final Cut Pro and support for external monitors. And even while exporting 4K movie files edited on LumaFusion, the iPad Air was only a few seconds behind. See guys, the M1 chip is extremely powerful for an iPad, and it is more than sufficient. And the M2 is certainly an overkill. But yeah, if you look at the long picture, the M2 iPad Pro will probably get slightly more extended software and security support compared to the M1 processor of the iPad Air. And lastly, small things like you get Wi-Fi 6E support on the Pro as opposed to just Wi-Fi 6 on the Air. So if you have a compatible router, then you get better Wi-Fi speeds. And there is Bluetooth 5.3 as well on the Pro, as opposed to just Bluetooth 5 on the Air. But in my usage, I found it similar when connecting to Bluetooth accessories. So in conclusion, where do we stand? See guys, before spending extra on the iPad Pro, the main factor that I feel which add true value is the extra storage, quad speakers, and the promotion display. And to a lesser extent, our Apple Pencil Home feature and the newer processor. If you feel that these extras are worth spending the additional money, then yes, do go for the Pro. Otherwise, you should be perfectly fine with the iPad Air, as this is one case where it proves that you don't have to pay top line product prices in order to get that top level performance. So those are my thoughts about the iPad Pro, guys. What do you think about it? Do you have any questions? Would you agree with me or not? Do comment down below and let me know. And if you are enjoying my content, a like to this video would be immensely helpful, and do consider subscribing guys so I can keep making these videos for you. And as always, thanks a lot for staying with me until the end. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.